Welcome to the Spiritual Warrior Coach podcast. This is a sacred space where healing begins, intuition awakens, and your spirit remembers its power. I'm your host, Barbara Savin, author, energy healing specialist, hypnotherapist, and spiritual life coach. For over 35 years, I've guided thousands of souls to protect their energy, trust their intuition, and step into their most empowered self. I invite you to join me for heartfelt conversations, spiritual insights, and gentle practices that nurture your soul and inspire your daily life. And together, we'll explore how to rise above negativity, trust your inner wisdom, and embrace the truth of who you are, a divine, radiant being of love and strength. So take a breath, settle in, and know you are not alone on this journey. You are loved. You are supported, and you are more powerful than you've ever been told. So let's rise together and join me now as your host. Well, thank you for joining me today, and welcome to the Spiritual Warrior Coach podcast. I'm your host, Barbara Savin, and today's guest is someone who truly embodies what it means to be both a healer and a truth teller. A woman who walks boldly between science, intuition, and real life experience. And Dr. Deb Muth is a naturopathic doctor, nurse practitioner, and the founder of Serenity Healthcare. And for more than 2 decades, she has stood in the gap for people who were dismissed, gaslight, or told it's all in your head, especially those struggling with chronic Lyme, mold illnesses, or vaccine injury. And she is fearless in her approach, blending cutting-edge science with holistic wisdom, and isn't afraid to challenge broken systems when they fail her patients. And what I truly admire most is that Dr. Deborah doesn't just treat symptoms. She empowers people to reclaim their voice, their energy, and their power over their health. And I know that today is going to be a deeply empowering conversation. So welcome, Dr. Deborah, to my show. I'm so happy you're here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Oh, me too. So how long have you been? I know you were a nurse practitioner. Now you're
Yeah.
a physician. How long has this been going on? And when did you know
Uh,
this is what you wanted to do?
yeah, I have been practicing for about 24 years,
Wow.
a long time. I didn't want to be a nurse when I started out. I wanted to be an attorney. Good thing I came into nursing.
Uh-huh.
And I just really fell in love with it when I started nursing. I got the pleasure to work with a fertility specialist and really started to understand what it was like to work with women and saw so many women be told things that were not nice, not true. And he really mentored me and taught me how to work differently in the healthcare system. And we did a lot of things that were amazing way before their time back then, you know? And that has always stuck with me. And so as my career has evolved, I first was a nurse practitioner, then became a naturopathic doctor, and became a naturopathic doctor because of two things, really. First and foremost, I was working with a very strong Hispanic population of women, and I started seeing them come in, and they were using all these different herbs and things to treat their symptoms during pregnancy and during menopause. And I started learning from them what they were doing, and I found this to be so fascinating. And like a lot of functional medicine doctors, I got sick myself when I was 28 years old and went to see my primary care doctor. And I had done enough research that I knew I was coming out with one of two diagnoses at the time. It was either going to be fibromyalgia, which was the latest and greatest diagnosis, or they were going to tell me I had MS. And when I went to see him, he spent about 10 minutes with me. The doctor never mentioned that my body temperature was 95 and it was a 100-degree day out in
Wow.
Wisconsin. And I had on a fleece jacket and a long sleeve shirt, and I was totally comfortable. And they never said anything about it. And after my appointment, he looked at me and he said, I have some good news. I know what's wrong with you. You have something called fibromyalgia. I have some bad news. He said, I want you to go home and prepare to be disabled in 4 years. Here's a prescription for narcotics, and here's a prescription for an antidepressant.
Oh,
And I remember walking out and just sobbing in my car. My youngest son was only 6 months old at the time. And I thought, oh my gosh, my career is just starting. I have these young children. How could this possibly be happening? And I was lucky enough at that point to have my wacky witchcrafty friends back in the day, 25 years ago, that's what we called ourselves.
yep.
And I called them up and said, okay, you guys know somebody that can help me. And they were gracious enough. They didn't mind me picking on them back then. And they took me to see a holistic nurse who taught me about nutrition, gave me some herbs to support my thyroid. And 3 weeks later, all of my symptoms were gone.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, wow, I really have missed the mark here. I have not been taught what I should have been taught when I went
Mhm.
to school to be a nurse practitioner. And so I dove into learning how to become a naturopath. I went back to school, got a naturopathic degree, a couple of bachelor's and master's degrees in herbal medicine and natural medicine. And that's how I practice today. I integrate the best of both worlds. I have the best of what we can do in conventional medicine and the best of what we can do in the integrative space. And we combine it together and help people determine, how do we fix them? How do we fix their problems when the system has so abruptly and
Yes.
brutally failed them?
Oh, I know. I've been through that when it was about 40 years ago. Yeah, because yeah, it was about I was in my 30s
Hmm.
when he said I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and he
Mm.
said I would be crippled you'll be crippled just like your mom, because he
Oh,
was also my mother's doctor.
yeah.
And I walked out of that office and I sat in my car and I said, no, no,
Hmm.
no, 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 no. I'm going to take his words and throw them away from my head because
Yep.
that's not my journey. And
Hmm.
so I got into more doing energy healing on myself,
Hmm.
hypnosis. And a year later, I went back, asked him to do blood work again. And he says, oh, there must be a mistake because I don't see rheumatoid arthritis. That's right, because I don't have it, because
Yeah.
it was emotional, it was mental, it was other things going on with me that I needed to heal. And I looked at him, I says, I will never be back here again. And I walked out the door.
Yeah.
It's amazing how, well, I know they don't look at all it is mind, body, spirit.
It really is. I had another similar journey. So when I was 56, this was only just a few years ago. This was in 2022, just after COVID. I started having some symptoms that were similar to what I had when I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, except more neurological based. And I have some problems in my neck from some accidents. So I really just thought it was degeneration in my neck. And I saw my orthopedic doctor. And I was telling him all of these symptoms that I had, and he said, you're a bright woman, Deb. He's like, you know what's going on. And I'm like, yeah, my neck is terrible. And he's like, no, he's like, you've got MS. And I thought, oh God, here we go again.
Yeah.
And I agreed to do the brain MRI, and it did show white matter brain disease. And he called me 2 days before Christmas and said, Deb, you've got MS. And I said, you know what? Thank you, but no thank you. I don't have MS. In my world, MS is all kinds of other things before it's MS.
Mhm.
It's infection, it's emotional, it's toxins, it's all of those things. And he said, do me a favor. He said, please go see someone and get on some medication right away. You're young and you can stop this. And I said, you want me to take a toxic drug that's going to cause me to get cancer instead of
Exactly.
finding out exactly what's wrong? And I said, thank you again, but no thank you. And I did the same thing that you did. And I said, I'm not owning this disease again.
Mhm.
And I went on that journey and I found infection, I found toxins, I found all the things that could trigger it. But I took it one step further, like you did. And I said, there's something emotional that's happening that this is coming up again too.
Right.
And I went on a spiritual healing journey and I've done some spiritual work over my life, but I decided I needed to really go inside and figure out was this from? What is it that I own in my lifetime? And what belongs to somebody else from a past life, me from a past life or a generational past life? Who
Mhm.
carried this forward for me because I want to give it back to them. I don't
Yeah.
want to keep it. And I did
Uh-huh.
just that. I dove into Akashic record reading and I did some astrology, did a lot of spiritual work, and found a lot of places where I was broken and things that didn't belong to me that I was able to let go. And it took me about 2 years and I repeated my brain MRI, and my brain MRI showed no
Mhm.
MS, no brain lesions at that point. And I was
Mhm.
able to grow the gray matter in my brain by 1.5 standard deviations in
Wow.
2 years, which is unheard of. Um, and I remember when I went back to see the neurologist and I explained everything that was going on. And she said, I don't think you really had MS. I think you have post-COVID peripheral
Oh,
neuropathy is
yeah.
what it was. And I'm like, oh, please. None
Hmm.
of you can admit that it was wrong. And it was all of these other things that were going on that caused the white matter and the symptoms. They don't want to admit that. And it's so sad.
No, it's very sad. It's
Yeah.
very, very sad.
Mhm.
My husband was um, he has it's right below the bone cancer. I forgot what it was, myeloma. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, but it's right below that, it's
Mhm.
MGUS, I believe it is.
Okay. Hmm.
And so, I mentioned to the City of Hope, I says, I've been reading, and what is if it's maybe
Sure.
parasites or, and you're reading, and I looked at him and I says, I'm going to start putting him on oil of oregano and some other things,
Yes.
and let
Hmm.
me tell it's his numbers. Thank you. Has all of a sudden they're like they're starting to normal out.
Yeah.
They don't believe any of this.
No, they don't. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to believe it. Because if they believe it, then they have to admit that what they've been taught is not
Not
accurate
right.
or is not the whole picture.
Yeah.
And I mean, even when I started learning all the things that I didn't know, you go through this little transition where you're a little angry, right? You spend all this time and
Mhm.
money and energy in learning something, and then you find out that what you learned was not accurate.
Yeah.
Or some of it was flat out a lie, right? Because the pharmaceutical company needs to make money and everybody else
Mhm.
needs to make money. But once you get past that anger, you can really start to truly heal and work with people. And you have to open your mind. But nobody does that until they either get sick themselves or they get a family member that's sick that they're trying to save. Then the practitioners will go out and start to look for something different. But until then, they don't want to look.
No, and I always tell my clients, look for a holistic doctor, look for a naturopathic doctor. Don't take these doctors like they're not God, and
Yeah.
they treat them like they're God.
Hmm.
Don't take them for 100% their word. Do some research, look
Yes.
into it a
Hmm.
little more, maybe go a little bit deeper into that, little
Hmm.
deep hole. And
Yeah.
and there are, ways to heal ourselves. Of course, if the journey is the illness, there's something there to learn. But
That's
many times we can heal ourselves.
right. Absolutely, we can. And yeah, it's part of the journey, but the journey doesn't have to be this horrible process. Maybe the
Right.
journey is for you to learn something different.
Hmm.
And the outcome may be the same or may not be as intense, but along the way, you're supposed to learn something in it. It's not supposed to be completely tragic all the time.
Well, that's the thing, and I know even for myself, they misdiagnosed me a few years ago, and unfortunately, I had to have a hip replacement.
Hmm.
And then a year or so later, they realized that all these years, my calcium was going into my blood instead of my bones,
Bones. Mhm.
and it was parathyroid illness.
Yeah.
And so,
Mhm.
had that been caught a long time ago, this would never have happened.
Right.
But I started doing my research because I felt something is just not right here,
Hmm.
and it came up parathyroid illness. And when I went to the doctor, he says to me, "Oh, are you a doctor that you think you have parathyroid?" No, but if my blood is here, the levels are so high. Why are you telling me to not eat calcium, not eat yogurt,
Yeah.
and you take away your calcium when at my age I
Hmm.
should be watching what,
Right. Hmm.
and it ended up being that. And of course, now I didn't go back to him, but
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
somebody else. But
Some of them
we,
are so arrogant. Oh,
yes, but we need to do our own research.
we really do. And today it's so much easier today than it was
Mhm.
years ago.
Oh,
Years ago,
yeah.
you'd have to go to the library to do stuff. Now we go to
Mhm.
the internet to do things. And with AI, it's even a lot easier these days. And I just created a platform called Venari that's going to be coming out in a few weeks. And it's a functional medicine platform. It's an AI generated, trained by me, trained by all of my knowledge and everybody that I've been having the pleasure over 25 years to learn from. So some of the gurus that are out there. And we've trained this platform so that people can put their symptoms into it. They can put their lab work into it, and it can give them ideas of what's going on and how to help them with different supplements and questions to ask and labs to ask for their practitioners so that they can get access to truly good functional medicine practitioners and knowledge. Even if they live in a very rural area where there's not a person around, they can still get the information and they can take it to their practitioner and have a conversation with them that they understand and know exactly what to ask for. And
Oh,
I'm so
wow. You got
excited
to
on
keep me
what's to come.
posted. That is like, I got to send that out to my newsletter people
I will
and to
definitely
everybody
keep you
else I
posted.
know.
Yes, I'm super excited about it because, we have ChatGPT and we have Perplexity and all these AI platforms, and most of the information that comes out of it is pretty reasonable, but it doesn't know how to interpret the information with other information. It's just
Mhm.
very linear. This will give you an opportunity to be no different than if you sat across the table from me and had a conversation with me. I my platform will be able to have that conversation and think of all the things that you wouldn't think of.
Wow.
Like, do we think of toxins? Do we think of heavy metals? Do we think of infections? Are we thinking of viruses? Are we thinking of thyroid? It'll help us interpret your thyroid labs from a functional medicine standpoint. And then give you a protocol that I would use in the office of different supplements that you can use to start working on things and get things better. And I'm really excited because there's a lot of people that just they can't access a functional medicine practitioner. There's
Mhm.
either somebody not around or they can't afford them. And this will help a lot of people be able to look at things from a different perspective.
Well, I know also here in California they hide because
Yes, they do.
they hide.
Many of us do.
Yes. And I said to myself, oh man, I need somebody.
Yes,
But now
exactly.
I found.
Yeah, you only find them because you stumble across them or
Yeah.
somebody tells you about it, but it's like we're this underground secret because we don't want the medical boards coming after us. And that during COVID, it was really bad.
Oh yeah. Oh, I
Yeah,
know. And it's funny where I was working at the Four Seasons Hotel at the California Health and Longevity Institute, and they wanted us to take the COVID injections.
yeah,
And I said, I'm sorry, but I won't do that.
yeah.
If you feel you need to fire me, then do it because
Mhm.
I'm not a believer in the flu
Mhm.
or all these other things because how do
Right,
we know what they're putting into our body? So,
right.
I always say, I'm a pure blood. I don't have
Yes.
nothing is there.
Yes, you and me both.
Yeah.
I am that
Uh-huh.
way too. I like to tell people before you take something that's new, here's my recommendation to people. Let it sit on the market for 5 years. Within that 5 year period of time, you will find out very quickly if there's going to be problems because you will see the lawsuits start to pop up and you'll start to see the complications.
Oh, yeah.
And then if it doesn't, and it's truly coming out to be something powerful, then decide whether or not you want to take it because you can go back and you can look at the research. But don't take something that's brand new on the market. We don't have enough people in those studies to truly know if it's going to be beneficial or not.
Oh, I know it's scary.
Hmm.
And because people just they'll a lot of my clients begged me to take it and I said, I'm not going there.
Yeah.
And they took it and then lo and behold, like 2, 3 years later, now other things they've developed
Yeah.
situations that they didn't have prior to that.
Yeah, we're
Uh,
starting to see the ramifications of it.
yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah,
It's
it
but
is.
that's a pharmaceuticals for you. But
It is.
well, let me ask you so
Yeah,
I know you've written a book, right? And I want to,
yeah.
yeah, Seen at Last, Uncovering Women's Misdiagnosis, Reclaiming Health. Wow. So is that on Amazon? And can you
It
share
is.
some,
Yeah.
like key therapies that you discuss in the book?
Absolutely. So I wrote a book about my journey of not being seen. And many of the women that I've treated over the years, I've had the luxury of being part of 15,000 women's journeys over my career. And that's a lot of people. And many of them have been misdiagnosed or not listened to or gaslit or told they were crazy. And then we, lo and behold, find out what's really wrong with them. So throughout the book, I highlight a couple of different stories that I think are really pertinent to women. And we walk through, like, if you're having problems with, say, fatigue and brain fog and muscle pain and joint pain, what exactly does that come from? And how do we look at that? And how do you talk to your doctor about what's going on? How do you ask for the right tests? And I share all the different tests that you should be asking for and how to link them together. And then I also share a lot of therapies that I think are amazing. Some that we've been using for a long time, including different herbs that we use to treat different things, and some new things that are emerging, like the peptide therapy and stem
Hmm.
cells and exosomes. And some of this really new cutting edge regenerative medicine is in there. And I have a whole bunch of bonuses that come along with the book so that you can write down your symptoms, you can track your symptoms, you can take them to the doctor, you know exactly what kind of conversation to have, you know how to vet the doctors that you're working with so that they're going to be a good fit for you. And the book is all about helping people finally be heard for the way they should be as women and to not just take this, oh, honey, it's your age, or it's because you're raising children, it's because you're taking care of your parents. That's what's going on. Or the one I love the most is it's just, you need an antidepressant. Um,
Yes.
that,
Yeah.
oh,
That's
don't get
crazy.
me started on that
I
one. It's
know.
crazy. We don't have an SSRI deficiency,
Yes.
you know? And so it really helps people, I think, understand why we're in this predicament, how we got here. We talk about the history of medicine and how we got here. And then we talk a lot in the book about how to reverse this, how to change this, and how to advocate for yourself. And I give a lot of treatments that people can start with on their own to start making their symptoms better. And it's really, I'm excited about it because we really are trying to start this mission for women to stop being told that, it's just all in our head. And
Hmm.
we want to change healthcare with it. So I've also created a free Facebook group called Seen at Last. So women can join that and they can
Oh,
talk to each other. They can talk to other women that have been in that position. I want to build this amazing community where women feel supported and heard and they can identify with other people. And we can change this. We can change this narrative. We just have to do it as a group instead of trying to do it as an island alone anymore.
exactly. And yeah, they have a tendency. I know, I mean, I'm 77 years old now, but when I was going through menopause, oh, it's just menopause.
Oh,
It's
yeah. Mhm.
But there are other underlying this, I understand, yes, we go through
Yeah.
changes,
Mhm.
but there's something going on there. And yeah, they just, it's like poo-pooed, you could say.
Yes, that's exactly it. We're
Yeah.
pacified, right? When
Hmm.
we're younger, we're told it's pregnancy and it's just your hormones. You're going through this fluctuation. It'll be fine. And
Hmm.
then when it's menopause, well, it's just menopause. It's just your hormones. It's okay. And so what? We're supposed to live, three-quarters of our lives with hormone dysregulation when we
Hmm.
could easily regulate our hormones and we could feel amazing as a result of it. But people just don't want to take the time to learn and share and educate. I don't know why. Probably because it takes more than 10 minutes to do in an office visit, you know?
Yeah, that's what it is. Everyone also wants a quick fix, unfortunately.
Yes, they do. And it's not quick and it's not easy a lot of times, especially with chronic illness. It's not like you're going to see a functional medicine doctor or a naturopath and we're going to make you better in a week. It doesn't work that way. It takes time.
Yeah. So I would assume uh you address the root cause, you know,
Exactly.
other than treating just the symptoms.
Correct. When people come to us with symptoms, the symptoms are just the storyline, right? We need to dig deeper and figure out where is that coming from. So I love to hear the story. I want to know everything about when those symptoms happened. How
Hmm.
old were you? What happened? Where were you living? Was there a lot of stress in your life? Was there trauma attached to this? Like, I want to know everything because inside there is where the gold is. And that's where it tells us where to look to try to figure out what triggered this in the first place. So, is it an infection? Is it a virus? Is it a metal? Is it a mold exposure? What exposure do we have that triggered this in the first place. And then once we identify that, it's much easier to treat. So we're not just going after treating your symptoms like, oh, we're just going to give you this so you can sleep, or we're just going to give you this so the pain is better. We can do those things temporarily, but it's going to blow up over time. You have to figure out what the root cause is, because then you can get rid of it once and for all.
Well, that's how I like when I'm an energy healer and
Mhm.
hypnotherapist, and I do life coaching. So
Mhm.
I always look, there has to be a reason why you're experiencing all this.
Yes, exactly.
Because I know
Mhm.
for myself, all my, I guess, rheumatoid arthritis situation
Mhm.
was deeply emotional,
Yeah.
and it was mental. And once I figured all that out, I was able to heal myself, heal
Mhm.
myself.
Yes. Mhm.
So yeah, for some reason, yeah, unfortunately, we go to the doctor and 10 minutes and you're out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and every specialist looks at a different part of you, right? So you've got the orthopedic, the
yeah,
endocrinologist, the this, the that. Nobody's looking at you as a whole.
as
So
a
you have to
whole.
have a doctor that looks at you as a whole. And it's really great to have somebody that can look at the emotional and the energy piece as well. That's really rare to find somebody that does all of that.
Hmm.
But you have to find somebody that's least willing to say, you know what, there could be an emotional, energetic component to this. So let's put you with this person that can work on that, and I can do this. And together is how you're going to get better. Because if we're only looking at one piece of it, it's not going to work.
And that's usually the case,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
which
we're
is a
really
shame.
just an energy being having a physical experience. It's
Yes.
not the other way around like we think. And we
Uh-huh.
forget about that a lot of times.
I know, unfortunately. Yeah, I always say, yeah, we're spiritual beings in this, physical body. And that's
Yes.
what we need to heal is the spirituality, the spiritual
Mhm.
side of us. And then the physical
Yeah.
body will heal.
Yes, and we've really lost that spirituality. Like a lot of people are spiritually empty. You know, they've
Hmm.
turned away from Christ, they've turned away from their church or whatever their belief is,
Hmm.
and they're left as a whole or empty as a whole. And
Right.
if we don't start filling up the body from that spiritual aspect again, I don't see how we heal this country or heal us as a society, because we cannot be spiritually empty and live a happy, fulfilled, healthy life.
Yeah, that's what I say all the time. Believe me. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm happy that you feel the same way. So I know I'm not crazy.
No, absolutely
Uh-huh.
not.
Hmm.
Absolutely not. Yeah,
So let me ask you, can you explain the connection like between hormone health and aging, especially how it impacts women going through menopause?
absolutely. Hormones are one of my favorite topics, so I'm glad you asked that question.
Okay.
You know, hormones are what keep us young. And when we lose them at a young age, and I'm seeing more young people be empty of hormones, like
Wow.
20, 30-year-olds that have hormone levels of a 60-year-old, and both men and women, which is not good, because hormones help us regenerate our cells and our tissues. And we need hormones for every single aspect of our body. So we have estrogen and progesterone receptors, which are the two main hormones for women in our body, and it affects everything. So, our blood, our nervous system, our brain, our skin, every single cell of the body is affected by hormones. And so, when we don't have hormones, everything kind of starts to shrivel up and we start to die inside, basically, because those hormones need to field or fuel the system. And if they're not doing that, then they're not regenerating properly.
Hmm.
We joke about hormones, like everybody looks to hormones when they have hot flashes and night sweats. This can make it better. And yes, that's true, because that's the trigger, right? That's the main symptom that we're looking at. But we forget that estrogen fuels the brain. And so it helps to prevent dementia and Alzheimer's disease and neurological conditions. And MS is commonly triggered during menopause. It's one of the most common times that we will see women get diagnosed with MS is when they're entering into menopause, as they're losing that estrogen. And so
Wow.
it's really important for us to optimize those hormones for a whole host of reasons.
So now, I mean, I've asked my regular doctor about, hormone
Mhm.
therapy is there like a specific test that you can actually do for this? Because they have no clue.
They don't have any clue. So you can actually measure hormones. We can measure estrogen,
Mhm.
progesterone, testosterone, cortisol, DHEA, thyroid hormones. We can measure it all. We can measure it by urine, we can measure it by blood, we can measure it by saliva. So there are all different ways that we can measure the hormones to see how deficient somebody is. In the conventional world, we're going to be like, oh, you're 55. Well, you don't have any hormones anymore. Why would you bother measuring it? Because some women do make a little bit of estrogen still. If they're making enough testosterone from their adrenal glands, they will then make a little bit of estrogen. Not all women are completely devout of estrogen as they get through menopause. The older we get, the less and less we have. But more importantly, what we want to see is the balance between estrogen and progesterone as well. We don't want women to have more estrogen than they have progesterone. But unfortunately, that's the state that we live in from about age 35. Women will lose progesterone first, and progesterones are a very calming, euphoric hormone. It just makes us go, whatever, who cares? I can roll with anything at this point. And it also helps put us into that deep REM sleep. So we know a lot of women in their 40s and early 50s that start to have insomnia. They can't get to sleep, they can't stay asleep. They're tossing and turning all night long. That typically gets triggered by the lack of hormones, and progesterone is the one that does that first.
It's funny because I asked for myself, and she looked at me and she said, "Oh, you're 77 years old. What do you want
Yeah,
to know for?"
yeah,
I
because I want
know.
to live to be 107.
Yeah, I want to know. I just want to
Yes.
know. But I didn't get an answer afterwards, but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, hormones are really
yeah.
amazing. And unfortunately, again, women have been given a disservice. We
Mhm.
had the WHI trial back almost 25 plus years ago now that made women afraid to use hormones and made all the doctors
Right.
afraid to give women hormones because heaven forbid, if we give them estrogen, they're going to get breast cancer. And that couldn't be further from the truth. That study was flawed. It's the most commonly studied study ever to date. And it has been challenged. And we know for a fact that that study did not show that women would get breast cancer.
Wow.
But there are different types of estrogen. So there's our synthetic types of estrogen that come from horse-based estrogen. That's your Premarin and your Prempro. Those are the older forms of estrogen, and they're much stronger than human estrogen. There's many different types of estrogen in there that our body doesn't make. And it can cause a lot of side effects for women. It's not going to give you breast cancer. However, if you have cells in your body that are bad, that are already contributing to cancer, it can make them grow if they are estrogen driven cancers. But today we give what's called bioidentical hormones. So we give a molecule of estrogen and progesterone and testosterone that is identical to what we would see in your body. If we pulled a molecule from your body, pulled those molecules and looked at them under the microscope, they would be exactly the same. You could not tell them the difference. And we give physiological doses. So instead of giving doses that are way higher than what a woman ever needs, we're giving a dose of what your body makes on a daily basis. That's healthier for you. There's not complications with it. And we no longer give oral estrogen. Oral estrogen is a little bit of a problem. It does increase your risk for heart disease and stroke. We did learn that. So we give it in a topical fashion, either in a cream or a gel or in a transdermal patch. And that's safer for women to use that way. And doing those things significantly reduces the risks of any problems using hormones for women. And they can use them. I have women in their 80s that are still using hormones and they love it. They feel great. Their brain works great. They look great. They feel great. They look 10, 15 years younger than what they actually are. Their hearts are healthy. It really does make a difference for women when we use hormones.
Yeah, that's what I was figured. That's what I thought, actually.
Yeah.
That's why I was asking her the question. I know I'm 77, but I would like to live to be like maybe like in the late 90s.
Yes,
You know?
yes. And you want your
Uh,
brain to work and you want to
yes.
feel
Hmm.
great. And one of the other things that people don't talk about a lot with hormones, when we lose estrogen, we tend to have more inflammation. We have more joint pain, we have more muscle pain, and we become these frumpy, dumpy, crabby old people. And we don't
Hmm.
want to do that.
Yeah.
So we really want our hormones there to optimize our life so we can be playing pickleball at 80 and we can be dating if we want to and going and having fun with our friends and looking at life from a positive standpoint instead of looking at life as a negative standpoint. Because without hormones, that's how we tend to be. We see all the negativity in the world. We don't see the positive things in the world.
It's probably why everything is so chaotic.
Yes, right?
I wonder if the men have the same problems.
They do. They have
Uh-huh.
the same problems when they lose their testosterone. They become very feminized. They cry more easily. They don't have their drive or their energy or their motivation.
Mm.
They don't want to go out and conquer the world and make amazing things happen. And so they have the same problem that we do. They usually just don't see it until a little bit later. They don't see it until they're into their mid 60s, where women are going to start to see it in their mid 40s to mid 50s. So we see it a lot younger than men do, but it definitely happens.
Wow.
Mhm.
I have to tell my husband about it. I mean, he's 78, but
Yeah,
he gets a little lazy sometimes. So maybe I'd have to push him, to
yeah.
take some tests.
And that's exactly
Yeah.
what we see in
Mhm.
men. They become the couch potatoes. They really don't have
Mhm.
the desire to do stuff anymore. They're just kind of like, I'm okay just sitting here watching TV, not a big deal, and they become extremely emotional, and they cry more easily and things like that. They're much more sensitive when we say things to them, and that's usually an indication for the women that, hey, they need to go get their hormones checked because something's
Oh,
going on with them.
that's
Mhm.
interesting. Thank you for that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let me ask, what advice would you give to someone who feels, I guess, overwhelmed by the medical system, and how can patients effectively advocate for their own health, and be active,
Yes.
partners in their own health care?
Absolutely. I love that question. That's a great question because it is very overwhelming and very intimidating to go see the doctor because the doctor's been thought to be the God, right? They know everything. And the first and foremost thing I would say is they don't know everything about everything, and they don't know everything about your body. You know
Hmm.
your body better than they do. So if you get with a doctor that's not listening to you or dismissing you, you can fire them. It's okay to fire them and find a doctor that's going to work with you inside of your insurance if you can. And don't be afraid to go outside of the insurance. Yes, it's going to cost you money that your insurance might have paid, but you're going to spend more money in the long run
Hmm.
seeing a doctor that's inside of your insurance that's not listening to you than you would if you paid somebody outside. So partner with somebody that resonates with you. That's first and foremost. Interview them. Go and let them know. I want to establish with a doctor, but I want to know about you first. How do you treat whatever condition you're dealing with? How am I going to see you? How am I going to communicate with you? How do I share information? Or if I'm researching something, how do I get that to you? And will you look at that and will you have a conversation with me about it? This person should be your partner in health. They should not be your dictator in health. That is really important to do.
And I unfortunately, I ask a lot of questions,
Yes.
and I sometimes I can see by their body language
Yeah.
that they're getting a little annoyed, or
Yes.
they'll cut me a little short, and I
Mhm.
and I'll tell them, I understand you only have 15 minutes with me,
Hmm.
but these are the questions I have, and
Right.
if you're not able to give me the answers, can you find what the answers would be, or who can
Right.
I go to get my answers?
That's right. You're paying them to educate you on something.
Hmm.
You're not paying them to just ask you a bunch of questions and then write a prescription and not explain anything and send you on your way. So, another really good thing is to write down your questions before you go, because then when you get there, if the
Hmm.
conversation isn't going the way you want, you don't get too nervous about it. You can go back to your notes and you can ask the questions that you want. And if they don't answer all your questions, you can ask their staff to make a copy of your questions and give it to them and have them respond to you then later after the appointment if they don't have time. And that's a really good way to find out, like, is this doctor going to partner with me or not? Are they just going to dismiss me and they don't want to be bothered with me? Because if they don't answer all of your questions, then you know this isn't going to be somebody that's going to work with you. And the other thing is to create a timeline of your symptoms. Like write all of your symptoms down, so you don't forget them, because when you start talking, it's easy for us to forget them and
Hmm.
forget the history of it and that timeline. So before you go, really spend some time to think about when did your symptoms start? What makes it better? What makes it worse? Does anything change them? And so then you can tell the doctor concisely, and you can just go through the whole list of all of your symptoms. And you might need to make a couple of different appointments in the traditional system because they do have a limited amount of time for you.
Hmm.
But just be prepared to do that. And at the end of your time, and I would ask them, how many appointments is this going to take for me to get through all my symptoms for you to be able to look at me as a whole and figure out what's wrong with me? Because otherwise, they're just going to piecemeal it and you're not going to get the answers that you want.
Yeah, I always go well prepared.
Yes, go well prepared.
Well
Mhm.
prepared. Maybe a little
Yes.
too prepared, but but it's
That's okay.
okay.
You're paying for it. You're
Yes.
paying for
Mhm.
their time. Don't think just because the insurance company is paying the bill that you're not paying for it because you're paying the insurance premium, you're paying the copay, you're paying any fees that your insurance
Mhm.
doesn't cover, and it's your time and your body, and you're going to pay for that either way if you don't get the answers that you want to get better.
Exactly. Boy, that's what is that the truth, believe me.
Mhm.
Oh, wow. I know I could talk to you forever here. And
Yeah.
so let me ask you, do you do Zoom?
We do telehealth appointments. We do
Okay.
in-office and telehealth. So if people are from far away and they want to consult with us, they can do that. We're licensed in Florida and in Wisconsin. So sometimes we have to work around some things and work with a practitioner that's licensed in your state if we have to prescribe something. But we can definitely do consults and we can consult with your practitioner if you want us to work alongside of somebody. There's lots of ways that we can work with you.
Okay. And what about California? Uh,
We do have some patients in California that we work with. Yes.
okay. Right. I'm just asking
Yes,
because that's where I
absolutely.
am.
Yes, California can be
Uh-huh.
a unique state sometimes, but we
Mhm.
do have some people that we work with there and it works out really well.
Oh, okay. So my God, you're like just like incredible. I'm so honored that you're on my show, believe me.
Oh, thank you.
So where can everyone get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So you can find me on social media if you want. Seen at Last is my group. You can join that. I pop in there and I do lives and I answer questions in there. But you can also find me at serenityhealthcarecenter.com. That's my clinic here in Wisconsin. You can send me an email. You can call and talk to my staff. But there's any social media platform. If you just look up Deborah Muth, you'll find me.
And when will that system be going out that you spoke about?
It will be out in the next 10 weeks. So it's coming
Oh,
up pretty quickly here. Yeah. Not as fast as I would like it to, but it is coming soon.
well, yeah, things like that take time, but
Yeah, they
and
definitely do.
and the name of your book again.
The name of my book is called Seen at Last, and you can find it in Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Oh, boy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having
Oh,
me. This was a pleasure.
what, believe me, it was my pleasure. But you know, ah, God, it's so refreshing to meet someone like you, believe me.
Thank
Your
you.
courage, your clarity, your willingness to challenge the system, while caring. I feel so deeply for your patients is truly inspiring.
Oh,
And you truly remind us that healing is not just physical, it's also emotional, energetic, and deeply personal. And
absolutely.
most of all, you truly remind us that our voice does matter
Yes, it does.
and our
Thank you.
intuition matters,
Mhm.
our, lived experience matters. And, I guess a lot of people tend to overlook all that.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But, again, thank you so much for being on the show. And uh, thank you, for my listeners for being here with me. And remember that your body is wise and your intuition is powerful and your energy is very sacred. So until next time, stay grounded, stay curious, and keep shining your light. And have a beautiful week filled with love and with light. Love, Barbara.